Okay, g'day again. I think I've said in a couple of the videos, when we closed down, I invited or asked people in my classes what they would like me to demonstrate during this time, and then when I put them on YouTube, etc. And one request was in the style of an early Andrew Wyeth, far more open, expressive and colourful, as that, with looking at Winslow Homer, Edward Hopper and many artists in England, etc., all around the world. This type of broad, even mark making, but not the splattering and the gouging. I've already done a drawing. The pictures that I've chosen here, this is in Scotland. I think it's called Picton, I'm not sure. Anyway, very, very photographed spot on a loch, I think, with the far hills and this early Wyeth, probably in Maine somewhere, with a couple of buildings and the fir trees and a couple of dabs and dobs for the sky. I'm using again the Bockingford watercolour, which I talked about before. So I've done a few outlines. I've missed a couple of things. I've missed this house here and just sort of brought it in a bit. A couple of the boats. I like this one on the edge. The brushes I'm using, I will still use my Manky brush and a Bristle brush, along with this wash brush and maybe a lining brush and a couple of other, I think they're sables, I'm not sure, can't tell the difference. Okay, a Spritzer. Up here, the palette that I've discussed before in other videos or early ones. I'm just going to spritz it slightly, as I said, the drawing, and just spritzing across where the sky is. I want with this wash brush, Winsor & Newton graduate round wash brush. Okay, so I've got these pictures are before Wyeth and his father's death, tragically. A lot brighter colours, and then he went to the earth colours later on. So, anyway, I'm going to maybe do it a little bit bright, a little bit of magenta, a little bit of cerulean blue. Right, magenta and cerulean blue, magenta. A little bit of burnt sienna into a grey, turns it into a lovely grey, depending on which tone. There are many colours with that. Low-lying straight across clouds. I'm going to come in fairly broadly to get some scumbled marks and even take some of the moisture out now and skiff it. A bit more blue in there, a bit more sienna, and come in there. See, I'm doing this sort of movement of the brush. A little bit of cobalt blue. It's dirty, so it's got a bit of a grey blue into there, across. Push some marks and just drop water through it to let it run down. So up into there, just leaving some of the scuffy marks, little bit of burnt sienna, warm up the sky a tinge. So pull a line, let this, where they're dribbling, let them come into it. A little bit of cobalt blue into there, roll the brush. A little bit more of the violet, a little bit darker, a bit of ultramarine blue, a bit more sienna. So I'm going to push some marks and roll it. Now I'll take the moisture out of the brush, take the edge of the brush and just dampen it and pull it through. Marks there, shapes, pull it through again. Couple of dobs of ultramarine blue and sienna, a little bit thicker paint. So there's a mark there, put across, and see, I do that because otherwise it becomes too cautious. And see the way Wyeth has put blobs, so I can lift some off and let this sort of run down. Where see the different colours that are coming into that. Same as Wyeth has got a little bit of warmth there, so a little bit of burnt sienna and raw sienna, and trailing that right across here, and give it a wiggle. And now I do this automatically, take some of the moisture out of the brush and suck up marks. Look, do that, and Wyeth's done it there. So I touch it, pull it for shapes, and maybe a little bit more light, so I take all of it out of here and remove some light for shapes. So I'm going to soften some. I want that a bit softer. Damp brush. I want that a little bit softer. And pull into there. Now look, I'm going to flick. I know Wyeth didn't do it all the time, but I'm going to flick some water through this, just for shapes. Okay, now I'm going to soften it a little bit more down to where the hills are. Soft over there, pull it down into there, soften that. Now those far hills, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, into the little bit of sienna, cobalt blue, bit of cerulean. So taking the brush a little bit more, I want soft edges, so take a tissue, and I just want to just lift that bit up a bit. And now I take this brush and I go up to the edge of that, pull it down. Now there's a little bit of a sharper edge here, so go up into there and pull it down. And a bit more cobalt blue, and pull this dry brush down into it. Now a little bit of yellow ochre and sienna into that. So go up, a little bit more of burnt sienna, and pull it down into it, into there. A little bit more sienna, maybe a little yellow ochre, go up there, and now back to ultramarine blue, and even a little bit of Prussian blue, and a bit of cobalt. Now I'm going to go along the edge of this, just these marks, and up into there, shapes, sort of patterns, they're not real. A little bit of sienna, maybe a little bit of lemon yellow, just in there to pull that. Now, I'll let that rest. Could go in and soften some, but now this big, lovely big rock, a bit of burnt sienna into the blue. So go up and pull that down. It's still wet, right? And a bit of purple and blue. And I'll put those colours into it, so it sort of explodes out. A little bit of raw sienna, and I'm going to put a little bit of cad yellow into that, and pull the top up across and go down again. And a bit more of that sienna, pulling it across into there. A little bit of lemon yellow and cerulean blue. It's not a clean because the colour underneath is already, so go up, down there, a little bit less, roll the big brush, a little bit of blue and even mauve, put some patches across it, the mauve, the big marks like this that Wyeth did up there, pull it down, marks. Now a little bit more of the sea purple and yellow, a wonderful little bit of sienna. So I go up there and pull it through, and I'm just pushing to make that light a connection down there. Now come around the back of the houses. little bit of lemon yellow, and with the brush turned into a little more of a pointy one, going over there and down there, and there's where I've drawn the water level, and I'm going to sort of dry brush across that now, and then pull it in. Now, a little bit more yellow and sienna, and first little bit of turquoise and sap green. Okay, and I'm going to pull this field down there. Look and see how these colours merge, like Wyeth's done there. A little bit of sap green there, pull it down into there, and there's a bit of sap green, so behind this, wet into wet, sap green. So I turn the brush down into this. I might do the whole painting in this brush, to there, and some dollops. Now a little bit of yellow ochre and sienna, putting a little bit thicker paint through there, and a little bit of blue again. As this is drying, I can put a few shapes, a bit like white. So I do this little bit of mauve, turn it into this, and do a couple of wiggle shapes of the edge of that cliff. Now a little bit of sienna into that blue, cerulean, cobalt and burnt sienna, a grey colour. So down here, as I said, I've missed out this long house, so I'm going up to the edge of that, pull that down, and I'm looking at these shapes here, and pull that mark into there. Now behind these houses, a little bit of turquoise, cerulean blue and sap green. So I turn this around again, and I go to that. There's some going up the hill there behind that chimney. It's the same colour the Wyeth's used there. So I come down, use this, and come around that, even put a little chimney pot, and make some shapes again over the top of the roof with this colour. That's this roof here, over that chimney, quite broad, down there to there, and then a little bit more of that up into there around this roof. It's further away, so there. Now a little bit of blue, I'm going to pull blue and that green. I'm going to pull a mark up there to let it all run softly in there. Now I'm going to pull that across, and I'm just going to take this little bit of wet out of there. Right, this lovely burnt sienna, raw sienna, and this swathe of soft, a little bit of yellow ochre. So I'm going across there and up there, dry brush, a little bit of sap green into that, up there, and push the brush up. Beside this, a little bit of turquoise and sap green. I'm not cleaning the brush, I'm going to go up there, and merge that in, and a little bit of sienna there, a little bit of mauve. So I'm going to pull this wall across there and put a blob. Contrast, texture, that mauve and burnt sienna. Dry brush now, that mauve and that burnt sienna. So I'm using the brush, sort of these marks, like Wyeth's done there. So I'm going to go and scratch it with my finger. And now a little bit more sienna over the top of it. Dry brush, makes marks, sienna, down there, and there's the boat, which is here. So I'm going to go dry brush around that, a little bit of the mauve, make some shapes in there, dry brush with the rocks, and I'm sort of scumbling out there, a mark there, a little bit of blue in it, a little bit lighter, so it goes out there. I even put into the alizarin crimson, so I'm going out through there, a bit of mauve, and the marks and a little bit of yellow ochre and sienna, and even a little bit of lemon yellow for the light across there and there and there, and a little bit of green, big marks. I'm going to go across, make a shape, a little bit of turquoise, and drop some of that in there somewhere. Now, so there's a little bit of dark green, so sap green, hooker's green dark, and even a little bit of alizarin crimson. So up here, so I go to the side of this house there, a little bit of blue, come down it with some dots, and then here, and a little bit of crimson and hooker's green dark. I think that's what it is. Take the brush up. It's still too wet, so I'm going to leave that for a bit. Back to that same dark green though, and I want a little bit of a line there, so mark there, a few blobs there. Now, with a bit of turquoise into this colour, and a little bit of cobalt blue, and a little bit of the dirty mauve. So take some of the moisture out of the brush, pick that up, and I'm going to start across here, go in there and go across, and come back and do that. A few little lines. Now I'm going to put a mark there, a little shape there, and up there, and a little mark there, and scumble in that shape. Now I'm going to add a little bit of sap green to that, and a little bit of raw sienna, and come across here now, a little bit more water, and I want some big marks, right? So I'm going, and some, you can see how fast I'm doing this shape, bit bigger marks here, right? And now a little bit of mauve into it, cobalt blue and mauve, and I pull in here, put some water in it round there. Whoops, low flying duck hit the clouds, take it off and pull that. Now a little bit of burnt sienna into that colour, a little bit of burnt sienna, and here I'm going to go across and then stop, cross, and in here I'm coming in and putting some marks, and a bit more of that colour, burnt sienna, in under here where this grass is, go across, big marks. I'm going to splatter some lines down, and there's the reflection of the house, put some marks, and a little bit of that sienna and blue over here. I'm going to go above the boat and pull that in and around there, and a little bit more blue and two blues, and a bit of the green, and around the edge of that boat I've just covered another boat, a little bit of sienna into it around the bow of the boat. I'm going to splatter down and across, and I'll put mother boat there then, and some lines where the white house is, but it's not really white. There's little bits of weed. Wyeth didn't splatter a lot, he did sometimes. I'm going to splatter some marks into there, across, and a bit more blue. I'm liking these runs, and a little bit more blue and a bit of purple. So put some lines through this, and a big mark, and that boat reflection, and some little marks going this way, zigzag, zigzag, and a line. See how Wyeth sort of brought those sort of shapes in. So the house, see, these are all sort of blending and softening out there. So the houses, it's a bit of shade. Wyeth's houses almost disappear in here. So a little bit of blue, and a little bit of burnt sienna. So turn the brush into this chisel shape, and I'm going to come down there, and there, and in that Winslow, sorry, hopper, this type of thing there, and a little bit of a join there, this end of the house, that's in shadow, and so is that, and a little bit less on this one. I'm going to put a little bit of sienna into it, up there, across there, over on the roof, and a few marks there. Put a bit of purple into that, a little bit of burnt sienna. Right, and this roof, and down there, touch it, quite broad, big marks, and the other one not so. So I take the edge of the brush and go across, leaving those shapes, and this roof a little bit warmer, so go down there, blend it in and go across, big marks, let the things run, sienna and a bit of yellow, and I'm going to lift up this grass bit, a few blobs of dark with ultramarine blue and hooker's green dark, blob there and a blob there, and maybe another line here, up there, and the coats on here. But before that, I am going to pick up a smaller brush, alizarin crimson, hooker's green and Prussian blue. So this pine tree through there, it's a little bit dark, so it goes up here, put marks, and Wyeth in these days wasn't too particular about that. Marks that he did later, a bit of green, a little bit of sap green and sienna, and pull it in front, in there, put another dark bush here, and a little bit of burnt sienna, and pull that out to bring up that house there, and I'm going to put another, as this is drying, but down here, look, nice granulation through there, and back to, I'm going to use the Manky brush now, burnt sienna, and the purple or mauve, a bit more, a little bit of green, not too much. So see the marks on this brush, and he did use things like that, so I'm putting these scuffle marks and little marks in the water, a mark, a shape, a line, a couple of little dotty bits through there, and a mark through there, and they're sort of scuffy shapes, bit of blue into there. I like sort of selecting which area with the Manky brush, so I'll put a shape there, and a couple of scratches with my finger, post, a mark, up and down, a shape, all adds to it. So now with a little bit of the Manky brush, I'm putting a little bit of blue into that dark. So with that blue there, I'm going to come across, a bit like Wyeth's done there, and put some marks in mauve for the reflection of that tree. So I'm going, and some lines down, little ones, make a little bit more dots, line, there's another reflection there, and I'm going to put a tree there with the Manky brush, just a mark for that tree, around the top of the roof. Manky brush tree, hit it, put a bit of there, and that reflection is here. Put a mark, and a line or two, dry brush up to the edge, and some little marks. These are dry brush, little bits. Wyeth's done it there, a little bit of splattering, maybe my fingernails scratching that through. So now with a smaller brush, a bit of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson into there, a little bit of brown. I take the moisture out, use it this way, and where there's two windows there, I'm going to put one back just beside the shade here. Little mark, a little bit darker mark, and I'll put one little scuffle mark there. And there's a little window at the back, just put a mark there. There's a mark here, shape there, a dry brush line there, a mark here, and a little bit of sienna, burnt sienna into that purple over there. This boat, just put a shape there. This one, I'm going to put a little bit of orange into that, and sort of put the shape in. A little bit of sienna, the stern is dark, a mark, and then the dark underneath, a couple of lines, and the reflection. So I go back to this, put a couple of marks, and this one here, do a couple of marks, and there's a camouflaged boat here, a mark, and I take my palette knife and take a bit of dark on my palette knife, and I'm going to pull the mast of this boat down there to there. I know, scratch a bit out. Now with a palette knife, a little bit of purple, you can hear me scraping it, and a bit of blue and green on the palette knife. I'm going to put some more final bits of dark on these rocks. I hope you can see. I'm going to pull up that and put these marks in of darks and the shape of the rocks, and pull that out, scrape a few marks, and how much the white starts to come out. I'm not going to do much more. The line of the hills, I've let it run down more, the softness up here, the shapes around there, the darkness of the tree, maybe I'll even do that a little bit darker, a couple of dry brush marks, that a little bit darker there, especially just on that corner there, protruding. It's another architectural feature, a couple of little lines, a couple of dots, and maybe just soften that reflection a bit, and that one. And it's a sketchy watercolour. There's a lot of light of the white of the paper coming through, and the houses, I haven't drawn around them much. I've left a soft pencil mark, and that's a wiggle and a squiggle with that. Maybe a little bit of orange, and touch up some of these chimney pots with a little bit of colour at the top there and there, maybe a little bit of colour there. Look, see, 3 of those dots of orange, suddenly pick it up, so that if I do a bit of justice, there's trouble all the time. Look, orange, a bit here. I'm going to put a glaze of, oh, look at that, a bit of orange there beside that boat, and a mark, and suddenly the houses even go back and everything else softens. So I think that will do. I'll take it off. I might scratch a bit, but I'll leave it now for, well, half an hour or something to dry naturally. Okay. Okay, there it is, mounted on a bit of off-white sugar paper, so that hopefully now with the tape taken off, look, there's even where some water dropped. I don't care. The softness, a lovely bit of granulation that Wyeth has out here, the variation of marks, not adhering to that. As I said, people go looking for Wyeth and they don't actually see it because he changed and altered what I call shape shifting. Didn't put that in there, wasn't necessary. Squeezed them up, made this tree a bit bigger. And the little wobbly lines and then the little bit of orange that picks it up, the soft edges, wet and to wet, up here like that, across. And then the marks with the brush and little dots and the palette knife marks. I don't know where, I don't think Wyeth would have used that in those days. So that an awful lot, the scumbling, another bit, slight change of colour. Look, there, the water's different colours. And the dribbling down of the reflected colours, a little bit of abstract painting in there. But hopefully with a lot of air in it, movement, etc. And the darks. I thank you very much. That will do. I think it's almost time to go home and have some dinner.